over 2 years we couldn't run our business, and I also lost my career in travel. So it was a shitty time, man. But it's great family, a wonderful fiance, and good people around me with bad intentions. And hey,
Hey!
like people look at us now as like in the same length as BTC or BFL or Unified or Samurai. Like those are the top 5 promotions in the country, and we're in the top 5. With 2 events.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 21 of the Good People, Bad Intentions podcast. And today as my guest, I have Derek from Fight League Atlantic. Now, Fight League Atlantic has been putting on some MMA shows recently, including having a card this upcoming Saturday, April 30th at the Moncton Coliseum FLA 3. But I want to make note that Fight League Atlantic is also a promotion that's known for its submission kumite series and its Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. In fact, whenever I ask somebody about Fight League Atlantic, that's usually how they were first known in this area in the Maritimes. So they've had a lot of success, Derek and his team, with everything that's been going on. They've been triumphing over, COVID-19 and some of the restrictions, and I really look forward to having this chat because, of course, I want to give our listeners an insight into this upcoming card, and then also kind of sharing a bit about the story about the promotion and how Derek has been able to continue through these hard times. So without further ado, guys, here's Derek. Thank you so much, Derek. I know it's a really busy time for you right now.
Thank you, sir. How are you? I appreciate you having us on the show.
I'm doing well, and I have to say we're only like a couple of days from Fight League Atlantic 3 that's happening. It's Saturday at the Moncton Coliseum.
Yes, sir.
How are things looking on your end? Is everything all in place now, or are you still gonna do a lot of work on the last week?
You know what? It's an interesting question because COVID, everything was so crazy, man. Like everything was so intense and so, the liability of these events in general, of people getting hurt or whatever, is enough on your mind. And then you have the whole COVID thing. Am I going to be responsible for an exposure or whatever? So with that kind of, it's still out there. It's still very serious, but without the restrictions and stuff, it's been a lot less hectic. It's kind of back to normal. And the commission in New Brunswick's fantastic. So yeah, everything's going really well according to plan. It's a busy week. We always say the event really doesn't start until the cage starts being set up. Then it kind of kicks in. It's real. But man, things are going according to plan.
It's looking like Moncton is almost like your Jacksonville, if you will, that the UFC had, where they were kind of more open and accepting to the promotion and everything like that. And you're doing now your second event there. And I have to say, because things for a while they were looking, like you were in a really tough spot. FLA 2.
Yeah.
You originally planned to go to Nova Scotia, and then kind of everything happened. And I know you were on the news, you were talking about it. Can you just kind of describe, because now things are getting a little bit to normal, but can you just describe what it was like those times when COVID was really rampant and you were trying to put on these events?
Awful. To completely be honest, it was a really hard thing because, again, when I say it, that's a really great question, because in this business, which is every business now, every day, like I use the word liability a lot, but it's very true. Like not just this business, when it comes to Hockey Nova Scotia, everything has a board, a commission, a sanctioning body, whether it be that's there for a reason. I certainly don't want to be responsible if somebody gets hurt and that kind of thing. So these commissions have a role to play, and that's one thing about being a promoter that you learn along the way. Like Mr. Hubert Earl gave me great advice in my first event. He came up to me, in the middle of the event, and he's like, "Remember, you're the promoter, not a fan." And it's true, right? Like it's hard to be kind of both, right? Because I'm a super fan of combat sports, boxing, MMA, whatever it happens to be, but you also have to kind of take yourself away and realize that you're the neutral party in all this. So, it was really hard. It was a hard time for sure for us. Over 2 years we couldn't run our business, and I also lost my career in travel. So it was a shitty time, man. But great family, a wonderful fiance, and good people around me with bad intentions. And hey,
Hey.
but yeah, it's been a journey, man, and we're happy to be back and just grateful for these commissions for working with us again. And Moncton, the commission, Danny Legier and Tony Whalen, the chairman, have been just beyond awesome to deal with. And so we're booked there April 30th. We're booked June 11th in Sackville, New Brunswick, on our way back to Nova Scotia. So we're booked September 24th officially in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia for FLA 5, and then we'll make our way back towards the city for FLA.
And one thing that I thought was interesting when I see all these events that you're scheduling, you're building up this series that I think everybody wants. Everybody wants some of the best fighters to come from here, and we realized that in order to do that, we got to make sure that our fighters have regular competitions so they can actually improve on their skills. And it's looking like FLA is kind of like this machine that no matter what happens, it's still moving forward. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that mentality that you got to yourself where you're kind of going against all these things going on, but you're still pushing forward? Can you talk about that?
Sure. I don't know if that comes from like a jiu-jitsu thing or my family. Like I come from a hardworking family. John comes from a hardworking family. We're kind of both of us are very entrepreneurial and just kind of go-getter kind of people. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is about that no quit kind of attitude, but it's one of those things that you've invested so much money and time into this promotion. And like you said, opportunities are super important. Consistency. I say it all the time, whether people believe me or not. We are all in this together. Like I think you made a post the other day too, and someone else made a post, like Corey from New Brunswick, Corey Morrill, about like combat sports supporting one another. And it's so true. Like we're all a bunch of weirdos who love combat sports, and to the outside world, they're like, man, I don't like that stuff, But to us, we all love it, and we got to stick together. And opportunity is the only way that these people can kind of grow. And when you go back to like all these multiple events, the thing about these events, it's really hard because you just can't pick a date and throw it out there and this is your event. Like you have to pay a sanctioning fee, you have to pay a venue deposit, you have to have your ambulance stuff and medical stuff in place, and your sanctioning fees paid to the commission. You have to have your license application and your permits and all this kind of stuff. So to book a lot in advance takes a lot of work and unfortunately a lot of money to book way in advance like that. But it's like you said, it's super important for everybody to grow and have things to look forward to, right? Plan accordingly.
And you mentioned your partner John Foster. Can you just kind of talk about how you both got into the business and kind of the origin story of Fight League Atlantic? Because I know you started off with submission, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu events, and in fact, like that's everybody in the province and in the Maritimes knows you for that. Mm-hmm. And then now you kind of have for the last 2 years or so been working on the MMA side of things. Can you talk a little bit about how everything kind of started out?
Man, you're a really good interviewer. I gotta give you props, man. You're really
hey, thank you. Yeah, no notes. Everybody else got notes and stuff. I go off the top of my head.
Very natural. Really good.
Thank you.
Work yourself into a host position here soon.
Oh yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, but John is a guy. He's a man of many talents. He's a guy who used to run. The funny thing about John is he owns a Bay MMA in Wolfville, for anybody who's down in that area. A very successful mixed martial arts gym. He also owns another gym down there, Moto Fitness. But he used to run this tournament called the Bay Open, which was the largest jiu-jitsu tournament on the East Coast for a long, long time. And then one year when we started doing our big grappling tournament, we added a couple tournaments into our shows. We did the Nova Scotia Open, and we would kind of always go back and forth about who had just kind of shitting on one another. Like, oh, I beat your record this time, or, blah, blah, blah. Like just trying to always kind of motivate each other to do better. And so we always kind of got along, and we have the same kind of goals and interests. And it was a no-brainer. Adam Frazier is a guy that he doesn't get enough credit because he was a guy that was there from the beginning, as well as Nick Olaney, who does the Guillotine production stuff. He does his own stuff now, but like these guys were in the very beginning helping us move mats, and Jared McIntosh. Our whole club was a big part of that jujitsu, and Danny Harvey and all these people, and then John and Adam and I decided to get into MMA to help the scene. That
Mhm.
was the whole idea, is like exactly what you said, opportunities, right? It's hard to move forward, hard to grow in a career if you can't fight. And so it's just adding more value to the scene, adding more opportunities. And then Adam kind of went on the wayside, and we just moved forward with it. And here we are today. So that was a long-winded answer. Sorry, man. But
No, no, it's totally fair, because I remember when I was on your podcast, I was giving you a lot of the credit, and very quickly I know that you started talking also about your partner. So I want to give him also the credit, as far as the
100%.
promotion. And
We do a lot of hard work, a ton of hard work, man. Like we're a family, we yell and tell each other to F off and whatever, but it's in one ear out the other, and you just move forward. You have a goal, and it's like anything, right? You have a task at hand.
listen, when we spoke quite a few times outside of the podcast and everything like that, and one thing that I thought it would be good to save till I actually have you on is, can you talk a little bit? You told me that you used to work for Disney. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, I did. So that was actually weird. I went to school. I went to St. X. Well, I went to community college, then I went to St. X, and so I got a business degree from community college, and then I went to St. X, and then really failed out miserably. I was a drunken mess. It was not for me. I couldn't focus, so I decided to kind of go back into my field of tourism, and I went to school for tourism. And I went out in San Francisco is where I went to school for tourism. So I went to,
Okay.
yeah, and then I met a few people who a girl. I owe her a lot. I haven't seen her in forever, but Karen Melanson was her name. Shout out to you, Karen, if you ever listen to this. But she got me a job on Disney Cruise Line, and
Wow.
yeah, it was awesome, man. It was like I spent like 4.5 years kind of travel. Like worked on cruise ships for 7 years total, and
Mhm.
I think that had, like, I say it a lot. Like Disney had a lot to do with my, like, how I carry myself when it comes to like level of service, the work, the approach you have. Like, it just, the way they, and it might not be for everybody by any means. Like, I didn't agree with, sometimes they'd yell at me because you'd have to have a certain look, the Disney look. Every day I'd have to go and get new clothes and scan them in and out, and my socks sometimes wouldn't be above my ankles, and they'd really get mad, like just weird things like that. But it just almost like a military, and just taught you about hard work, and I met people from all over the world, and like, it was incredible, a wonderful way to save money. And I tell anybody who's young, that doesn't know what they want to do with their life, like if they're not sure if they want to go to university or whatever, go. I'll help you. I'll give you the contact. If you ever, anybody who's listening to this, go work on a cruise ship. I'll tell you, it's the best way to meet people from all over the world, and just open your eyes to a lot of really cool things, like cultures and everything, right? You just realize people from all over the world are just from all makes and models, right? It's wonderful.
So did you get your sea legs from working on the cruise ships, or did you have any past experience, going on boats?
Zero. I grew up in Pictou, and I don't think I spent much time on boats even still. The PEI
Mhm.
ferry once in a while, but that was it. And that was my sea log. It was straight to it. I'll never forget it, pulling up at like 4 a.m. They pulled up, and it was like completely pitch black, and you're all groggy and 21, and you look up, and there's this cruise ship that's like massive, 4 football fields long. And it was a wonderful experience. So it taught me so much about myself and about other people, and I wouldn't take it for the world, for sure.
So segueing, and I thought that this would be a good segue to that, is obviously Disney bought ESPN. They're dealing with the UFC and everything like that. And from somebody who worked at Disney and kind of knows the Disney way, and like you said, Disney something that a lot of the thought processes that you have today is kind of based off of.
Mhm.
Can you kind of understand some of the things that the UFC does today in this Disney era, because of the fact that Disney owns them now?
They're money driven.
Mhm.
They're a corporation, right? And that's the thing. Like, I've worked for like them, I've worked for Michelin, I've worked for a lot of big corporations in my life, and it's one of those things. It's like this train is moving, and like, you're just a piece of this train, and it's either, if you either don't, if it's so big, like what we experienced last year with this whole cancel culture thing. Like, there's certain things that you just can't cancel. And I don't know if Disney's one of them. Like if, there's certain things I'm sure that would bury it, but like they're just such a big motion train that's so deep, and I don't think it can stop it. So it's one of those things, either you're going to jump on and be a part of it or you're not. And like when it comes to like fighter pay and all this kind of stuff, it's disappointing because a lot of times in our business, in any business, a business of sport, there's really smart people who are smarter than the promoters, smarter than the commission, smarter than everybody who are involved at the top level, and they make the rules. So I don't know. I don't know. I wish they would pay people more. I really do. Um, I think they just have a beautiful product, but I think they could do a lot more with it. Like about like one big thing I think that fighting, and this might be a popular, might be an unpopular comment, but to me, like how to speak is something that fighters really need to learn. Not saying I'm perfect by any means, but like, and I know it's that hype up, like really, but like hold yourself accountable. You don't have to be like dropping f bombs and swearing like crazy and just like that's how I am. Like for me, as our promotion, like we would love nothing more than someone to be like win a fight and like do something like Mike Malott did last week, or like
Yes.
kind gestures. You know what I mean? Like don't be that bad person. Like hopefully that Connor era is slowly fading away and we're getting back to a. But that's a big thing for us, man. Like, I've been dealing with forever promoting combat sports. People like turning the blind eye to us, and having a preconceived notion about what fighting or what we are about before they even get 10 words out of my mouth. So the farther we can explain, like we just had shout out to Nova Scotia Spirit Company, just signed on as a great sponsor for us. Big deal. So we haven't announced that yet, so we'll announce that soon. But wonderful people, and that's the thing, like they understand, like we're trying to get this involved like to a younger level to where it's like we can show this in a classy way, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
I want to say, like, the one thing I like about your product is that MMA at the maybe in the beginning, in like the late 90s to the early 2000s, it was very raw,
Yeah,
and it kind of catered to a certain type of person. And I find with your product that have been going on, you kind of took a lot of the good streamlinedness that we're now enjoying in MMA, as far as like, it's not, like early 2000s MMA, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, it was like a lot of heavy metal and like,
yeah.
kind of like a biker kind of vibe. And now it's like, a sport that is one of the biggest growing sports in the world, one of the most popular sports in the world, that is shared by people from all different backgrounds, all different countries.
Huge.
And
That's
yeah,
that's the thing. That's very true, man. And I think and I'm not saying that the people from before were, it's just a different kind of genre of people. And I think you have to market it too. You have to have women, you have to get it to the kids, you have to make this a full circle kind of wonderful all ages event. Like, like there's nothing, I gotta tell you, man, like our first event, there was like 15 fights outside the cage, there was a brawl at the end
way.
of the event, the cops were there. It was disgusting to me. Like, but
Mhm.
I don't care what anyone says. Like, I'm not a big drinker, and that's what booze does, period. Like booze gets that, people get to the fights and they get aggressive and they're hyped up, and then they're drinking too much, and then that's what so, and a lot of that comes down to like a well-timed event, the time in between fights, how things like. But yeah, so man, I'd love nothing more than no fights outside the cage, and just everyone kind of get along. And our last event we didn't have one, so good work, everyone.
Hey, yeah, I can't imagine having to, part of your audience, part of the fans, they want to go and have a good time, have some drinks and watch the fights. And I totally
Yeah,
understand that. And then trying to be able to balance that between, not wanting fights going on and the fights to be in the cage, right? Because
exactly.
I don't know, like a lot of fans, boxing, MMA, whenever like there's heat between two different fighters, and on site I'm gonna beat this person up or that person up. I mean, it's really cool, and it makes you, like, as a fan, like, oh, this guy's like from a bad,
Yeah,
bad area town. But at the same time, it takes away from the sport. If you actually like the sport, you want the fighters to fight on equal terms, both being able to prepare for one another in their style and their skills. And when you're doing that just on the street, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, gangs of people, you got one person fighting 7 people. You know what I mean?
That's exactly, and that's what's kind of what happened, right? And that's the thing. Like, we want people to feel safe, and we want them to come back to our events and enjoy our events, right? We don't want them to worry about if someone's going to sucker them going to get a beer, right? And so, I don't know, man. That might just take time, but I think, it's just. I also think COVID, the set, it might take a long time for people to feel that comfortable close to one another again. I don't know.
I'm trying to look up his name. I don't want to butcher it. There was an announcer that you had for FLA2. Was it Jimmy Smith?
Jimmy Smith, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about having him as an announcer, because he's making weight, and he's now, if I'm not mistaken, working for the WWE.
Correct. Yeah.
And he was with Bellator for a while, I think.
UFC
Or
for a while. UFC when they were on Fox.
UFC on Fox. Okay. Was he on Bellator?
He was, yeah.
Okay, Bellator. I actually, funny enough, I knew about him from the TV show that he did with one of his friends, where they were like looking at different combat sports. Maybe you know a little bit more about this, but I just thought it was really cool that you brought like a world-class, play-by-play guy.
It was crazy, man. Like, I heard a funny story he told on a podcast after that, and they were asking, they're like, "Hey, like, I saw you recently up at this fight league, like they're like fight league Atlantic event." He's like, "Yeah, fuck, man. Like, this guy kept bothering me. He messaged me like a year before this event, and he's like, at this point, he didn't even have a promotion, and he was like, I wanted me to be the commentator, and I'm like, sure, yeah, whatever, message me." And sure enough, this kid just kept messaging me, and I was like, "I'm 40, Jimmy, I'm 40," and he was like, he just eventually bit. He was like, "Sure, I'll do it." He was in between because he got released from the UFC. He wasn't working for them, and he was in between gigs. I think he was doing a little bit for maybe Fury FC at the time, or CFFC or something like that. LFA, I'm not sure in the States, but yeah. So it ended up being a nightmare trip for him. Like, he hasn't spoke to me since. So
no.
true story. Yeah, true story. Because, and I'll blame our weather on that. Like, I remember he got delayed in Montreal. There was a huge snowstorm the night before the night of weigh-ins. We lost our main event because of that, and then we lost him too. So he showed up Saturday, and like an hour before the event, commentated, went to the hotel, and flew out the next morning. But he only made like $500, so it was just like a nightmare trip for him, and he was just like, "Fuck, this was stupid." And I think he was just like, "Fuck Canada, I'm never going back there."
Oh no.
But yeah, but it was he's like, well, yeah, he's on the WWE now doing WrestleMania and stuff. It's pretty crazy, right? Like, so yeah, this is a small world. It's a really small, like, MMA combat sports is a really small circle. It really is. Like, so one person that can know somebody that, like, but I don't know. It was a neat experience, and we're probably going to get back to that at some point soon. Bringing someone in as a.
Wouldn't it be cool to get Robin Black? Wouldn't that be interesting to have him?
Well, it's funny because Robin, he does he's done a few different ones there, and I don't know him at all.
No,
like,
me neither.
He fought out here on the East Coast for ECC back in the day.
Yes.
So I don't know how he feels about coming back. He might want to come out back. I don't know. I don't know the guy.
No, me neither. But I did know that he fought for ECC, and like I've heard a lot of people saying that he's like one of the best, if not the best. But also, I think there is potential for people just from here to become the best at announcing. So it's kind of weird. Like, I'm sure you have this thought in your head where you're like, do I bring in everybody that's the best right now, or do I try to bring them up too with the promotion and money?
And that's the thing, right? It's the big money. Like, one thing that we have like issues with on the East Coast is that we're on the East Coast. So and I don't know if I'm like, we're guilty as a promotion, or if it's because of our events or our marketing, whatever. But like, people look at us now as like, in the same length as BTC or BFL or Unified or Samurai. Like, those are the top 5 promotions in the country, and we're in the top 5, and with 2 events, right?
I seen that. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's a big deal, really. When we've had 3 pro fights total, So really it's saying a lot about what we can do with the production. But the big thing about us, man, is, and I'll give a lot of credit to John, is ensuring that we don't go over our budget and staying within our means and building slowly. That's a big mistake that a lot of people make, whether it's MMA businesses or retail stores, restaurants, whatever, is spending more than, a lot of people in life make that mistake, spending more than they earn, right? And living off credit or whatever. But for us, we stay grounded, we build slow, and we want to be here till we can do FLA 50 like these guys out west and stuff, right? Like that's our goal, man. Like we want to be a feeder, but who knows what can happen? We could take this, who knows?
FLA
Right?
50 when Derek's 50.
Oh man, maybe that. There
What,
you go. There you go. I
what
like it.
what do you see your promote, like this is kind of a hard question, but what do you see your promotion like in the future? Do you want to have more pro fights? Do you want it to be a kind of an amateur scene? Do you see yourself as kind of giving people kind of the foundation to get into the bigger promotions, start their career? How do you see it? Are you a Kickstarter promotion? What's the deal?
Like it's a great question, and one that John and I don't talk about a lot because we're big on taking it event by event.
Yep.
That's a big thing for us, stay grounded and like, again, don't put the cart before the horse. And but if the UFC, like we've had the UFC Fight Pass, we've had Fight TV, all these people reach out, Fight Network and stuff, but for us, the problem with that is we do all our own production. So a lot of those places want your product, like either they want your production or, and I'm not saying Fight Pass is like that, but like Fight TV, for example, like you do work and you send them the link and they take half the money. To me, I just don't understand it at all. So there's no benefit to like at all. Like there's 2 million subscribers on those platforms, but they're like there's 58 events per night. So it's really a hard thing to. So I don't know. I like, for us, pro am cards will be our future for a long time. Probably for the next couple of years, you'll see 3-4 pro fights and 5-6 amateur fight type deal. Combat jiu-jitsu is something we've looked at in the future, maybe down the line. John, we also talked about like small glove boxing in the cage, which is not allowed because there's no rule set. So you'd have to come up with some kind of rule set that way. But like boxing is something we've spoke. John's a big boxing guy. He's a big boxing fan, and I'm not as into the scene as he is for when it comes to boxing. So if that's something that he wanted to do, I'd fully support it. And who knows, man? But like first and foremost, like that's way down the line. First and foremost, we got, we would like to get to FLA 50 before we got into boxing. Let's just say that. We have that's how far down the line it really is. So we just gotta build this scene, and hopefully the guys over there at Atlantic Combat Sports can do some great events, and everybody can do great events and get this scene #1 in Canada. That would be awesome. So
yeah, I mean, like I've said before, we have a really great history of fighters, and we have a history too of a lot of rugged people, if they're in the fishing industry, wherever they are, or whatever it means, like these types of backgrounds can really help people as far as getting into a combat sport. We just need the opportunities, which you guys are certainly working towards giving all those opportunities to everybody. I was wondering, and by the way, your response was a really humble response, and I want to know, can you talk a little bit about your journey to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because I believe you are a black belt, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Under what school?
Jared McIntosh and Jason Rorson, Pictou County Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit, because we only have about 8 minutes or so. I know you're really busy. Can you just end off by kind of talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, how you got into it, and how it's kind of impacted your life? Because I think that with everything you're doing in this realm as a promoter, I think you're keeping within your kind of your discipline and your love for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like I'm a huge fan of martial arts and combat sports, and I haven't trained, like, to be honest, I've been shitting the bed with training probably the last year. Like I haven't been training the way I should, and I'm starting to kind of get back into it now a little bit. And it's so good for your mental health, physical health, you know, like I'm not a fighter. I don't pretend to be a fighter. Like I'm not one of those people that's out there. Oh, like I love to train. I'll go hard. I'll try to rip your head off in training, no problem. But there's also lots of times where I'll be like, "Are you okay?" You know, like so for me, it's like that. I say it all the time. It's like gentleman's hockey for me. I go out and get a good sweat in and have a good time, and this is for sure an outlet for me to give back to the sport and stay involved in the sport. Right? Like I'm 41 and getting a little bit older, and but you know, I feel great still, but. I'm not a huge, like I say in a lot of interviews, I'm not a big fan. Like I got hit by lightning when I was 20, and I also got hit, like I was in a really bad head-on collision when I was 11. So I've got some head trauma, like from when I was early as a child, and so you know, like I've sparred lots and stuff, but every time maybe this is a thing, but every single time I spar light, I get really bad headaches.
Mhm.
So for me, it's just like, I don't know if it's, I don't know. I don't know. And, you know, some probably people who, you know, throw hard out there probably, I want a pussy, you know, but, you know, it is what it is. Come on over. I'll choke you and we'll see who's the pussy. But to me, it's one of those things. I just don't like getting hit in the head at all anymore. And it's to each their own. So I love jujitsu for that way. You know, you can go as hard as you want. And, you know, you do get hit in, like jujitsu, you get hit a lot, actually, in a lot of different places. But I've been lucky, knock on wood, I haven't get cranked in the head too much. So
I got cut. I've done a few Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes. I've always got cuts in the mouth and that type of thing.
you wear a mouth guard?
No, I didn't. So that was the main
I don't wear a
thing.
mouth guard or a cup, but never have.
Really?
Ever.
I've only done like four or five classes. I've done. I went to BJJ Quebec. I went to TriStar I did a class with Faraz.
Nice.
I'm trying to think what else I did. Halifax BJJ Society because Jordan. I forget my roommate's last name. Just off the top of my head, my roommate Jordan was an amateur MMA fighter. Pardon?
Mackenzie?
Yes, he
Big
was.
redheaded fella?
No, Jordan.
Girl?
No, he's Jordan Roy. Jordan Roy was my roommate. Jordan McKenzie, I know.
Yeah.
He does boxing
tribal, right?
Yeah. But no, Jordan Roy, he was my roommate quite a while ago, and then he was teaching at the Halifax BJJ Society.
Oh, Jordan Roy, little Jordan.
Yeah.
Not little Jordan. I don't mean to say it. He's a badass dude, but he's a wicked guy, man.
Yeah. And he was my roommate, and he kind of got me back in because I was doing karate for a while, and then I stopped, and then I got into boxing at Titans, and I did a class with him. It was the first time I puked from doing something. Like, it was intense.
Jiu-jitsu or boxing?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. It was intense. It was like every part of me was working. It was crazy.
That's the thing about MMA is, like, when you go to MMA, you can't, like, that's what I notice a lot about from training. You know, like, you train at a pretty high level in jiu-jitsu, but in jiu-jitsu you can kind of take breaks. You can be lazy sometimes because you're not getting punched in your elbow in the face. MMA, like, you get these MMA guys or girls who are working on you, and like, what a pace they put on, and then they're not even punching you in the face, right? So it's a whole different level of it. But everything about it is wonderful. The positive vibes, the serotonin, whether it's boxing, whatever it is, man, get out there and do it, and it'll change your life. There's so many wonderful clubs out there in this community, and wonderful people who are coaches. Man, it's a wonderful sport.
No, I totally agree. I'm a huge fan of MMA. My focus lately has been on boxing, but I like my favorite podcast beside the FLA Exposure podcast, which, by the way, is one of the main inspirations for this podcast. I said that in my first episode. I said it also on your podcast. Gotta tip my hat.
No, man, you're a gem, dude. You're doing great. That's true, man. In this shit together.
But one of the things that my favorite podcast, The Fight with Teddy Atlas, he's really big on. He's a boxing, in the Hall of Fame. But he talks about MMA almost as much as boxing now. It's when you're a fan right now, like, MMA fans are in a really special time. There's so many promotions now. Then the UFC itself is having so many great cards upon cards. And the main thing is having events that or having competition that's fair, you know, a good 50-50 fight. Because in boxing, notoriously, people just pad their records, you know, 10-20 fights, then they start actually testing themselves. And the sad thing about the fans is they see those padded fights and they don't really know that they're padded fights. Like, you know, I love Mike Tyson, but he went against a lot of people in his early of his career that just wouldn't stand the test of fighting him.
Mm-hmm.
And I love now how MMA is just like this sport where it's like no BS, who's the best, 50-50. And then you get these guys who are in these 50-50 fights and they still win and they're even greater. They're
Yeah.
even greater.
You know what? I go, and I'll say this till the day I'm dead. That goes on the promoter.
Mm-hmm.
The promoter needs to know what they're doing. Like
Mm-hmm.
if the promoter knows what they're doing and they're involved in the sport, like there's no way in hell that any, and I'm gonna say that because there's other, like there's fights that I've put together that I'm gonna take shit about too, like that I'm not proud of, right? But sometimes you got to make a card, and things happen, and people want to fight, they want to fight. But it's, yeah, man, I know exactly what you're saying, and it's a lot more entertaining to have those challenging fights. It's better for your community. It's better for your scene. It's better for the athlete that they get that experience of testing themselves against. Like, if I'm in the club and I'm just whooping somebody all the time, who's learning? Nobody. If I'm getting whooped, I'm the, like, if whoever the guy is getting whooped or girl getting whooped, probably in 6 months they're going to be whooping you because you didn't grow, and they're just constantly going to get better. And you have to have those moments, man. Speaking of which, what did you think about the fight this past weekend?
With Matt Malott or Mike Malott.
No, the Tyson Fury fight.
Oh, yes, yes. Listen, I was working at the time. I watched it. It wasn't necessarily the war that was being promoted.
Mm.
Dylan White, he went against Povetkin twice. The first time he lost. Second time he won in the rematch. What I really tempered about this, and it comes back home. We got somebody who's very soon going to be fighting for the WBC cruiserweight title eliminator, Ryan Rizicki.
Yes,
He went against Oscar Rivas for the first Bridgerweight title fight. Went the distance with him, and the thing is that Oscar Rivas had fought Dylan White and went the distance with him, and it's kind of speaks on something about fights and how, as a fan, you always try to link all these other fights to see who's really the best. You know,
yeah.
if Dylan White went out in the first round, then it means that Oscar Rivas had really no chance with probably Tyson, which meant that Ryan Rizicki maybe didn't have a chance with Tyson, at least at that time. But I think what Dylan proved is that he does belong there. It's unfortunate that, you know, he got uppercut, but man, Tyson, he's just unstoppable, Tyson Fury. I think he's saying he's gonna retire undefeated, be the second heavyweight champ to ever go undefeated, followed by Rocky Marciano. If he does that, and he still wants to test himself in MMA or like small gloves boxing, maybe against Francis Ngannou. So I think it's cool that he has that option because he might be able to test himself and still keep his legacy as far as boxing intact.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah,
Yeah.
smart actually when you think about that, right? Instead, like smart to do it that way and have Francis there, even though it was a little cringy in cage or in the ring, but
It was cringy. Yeah.
to have him there was very smart, you know. And I will say though, like I say this all the time. I don't know, like I look at what the UFC did, man, and
Mm-hmm.
like the UFC has made such a great product, a consistent product, right? That's the key, is consistent. Every weekend, you know, there's a good card or a card, you know, you don't necessarily know who's fighting anymore. You just know there's a good card and you know that it's going to be fights on. It's like a Saturday night, you know that Saturday night, the hockey game is going to be on. And that's like for MMA fans, that's what you know now. And they know that, and they got that TV deal, and it's just like constant, like, you know, and that's like what we have to be like. Not about the fight. I mean, like constantly consistent. So you can give these stars And going back to what you asked before, like if we're a feeder platform, great. We'll never sign anybody to hold them back from going anywhere. Like we're small town Nova Scotia, New Brunswick company, man. We want people to grow and get out of here and go make some money and fight wherever you can. Do your thing, and we'll be here if you need us, right?
I wanted to say this upcoming event, I am really excited for Mariah Clinton and Rob Logan's fight, especially. Mariah's last fight that I watched, I mean, she's now kind of gone a transformation. She cut her hair. It's kind of somewhat reminiscent of, Rose,
Yeah.
Rose Namajunas, somebody who I really love in the UFC. And man, that last fight that she had, I mean, it was amazing. She just comes forward. She has a really fun, aggressive style, really fan friendly. And Rob Logan too. He has a really he goes forward for it, and I love those kind of fighters.
Yeah. Both.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a really exciting event coming up this Saturday. Hey Derek, I know you're pressed for time, man, but I really appreciate you coming on us and having a chat about the event and other things. So, hope you take care, and I hope the event goes well with no fights, fights in the crowds, just in the cage.
That's it. It's Monday, man. Fight week, so we got 4 days to go, 5 days to go. Hopefully, we'll make it there with 8 fights, and yeah, it's going to be a good weekend. Get your tickets, fightleagueatlantic.com. We're selling real well, man. We're over 600 tickets sold. We're like 650 tickets sold right now, so should be a great crowd.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. Take care. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Good People, Bad Intentions podcast. I certainly did. Derek had a little bit of a constraint as far as time, and I wish to talk to him again in the future. But I think what we really took away from this is the amount of difficulty that surrounds getting into the fight game and the promoting game. It's not as easy as I thought, and definitely having these conversations can really give us a better insight as far as what has to happen in order for a fight to happen. Now, COVID has not been a fun thing for a lot of people, especially business owners. And I really appreciate him also opening up and talking about kind of the struggles that happened not too long ago when the FLA2 had to be switched from Nova Scotia to Moncton. And like I said, it was kind of like how the UFC had to go to Jacksonville, Florida, in order to have in-person or audience events. So I like trying to make those types of parallels, because I do realize that the UFC is one of the biggest promotions, and I'm really, really happy about the product that Derek and John have been working towards for this amount of time, because it's really a well-refined product. And again, I'm so looking forward to seeing the results of this event, seeing the schedule proceed, the consistent events, and I'm hoping to cover some of them and attend in the future. So look forward to that, guys, because like I said, there's a lot of really good talent. The people that are fighting on this card really represent the Maritimes and Nova Scotia really well. So yeah, guys, without further ado, until next time, take care, whatever time you're listening to it. And please, if you enjoyed this episode, no matter what platform you're listening to it on or watching it on, I strongly recommend that you like, comment, and share. If you're on a podcast platform, I'd really appreciate if you gave a fair rating, what you thought about the podcast. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.